Okay, hopefully I'm live. Let me double check. No idea. Okay, we're live. Just sorting out my screen so I can see what's going on. Okay, hopefully my pen is charged. That wouldn't be good. Okay, so I'm painting this snow scene which I generated using AI. This reference there you can see down in the bottom. I'll just use screen size, doesn't really matter. Okay, I start off analysing this painting, and I want to work out from the back coming forward what I need to do. So if I'm looking at the sky, let's ignore the fact that it's got clouds at the front. So forget the clouds, we just need the sky first. And the sky is, just a simple blue, but it's quite dark actually. So let's drop that in. We can see it's not exactly the right color, but I don't really care about that as long as it's dark enough. And to lighten it up down the bottom, let's choose something like this. Color fill. And we want it to lighten up around there. And then I use Gaussian blue, and then there we go. Basically have simple sky, which we can change later. I like this. Oh god, I got the wrong bitrate again. Every time, man. I'm not sure I can change the bitrate now. It's too late. Maybe I can. I'll try. Okay, I think that's better. 60 frames per second. Oops. Okay, so ignore the clouds for now, I think, because they're quite complicated. So let's get the mountain shapes in. Now, the color I want to use is, if you look at these mountains, they're obviously rock. So I want to draw the rocks first. So in my mind, I'm trying to understand the layers of the mountain. So it's got rock on it, and then, some maybe dirt or whatever, and then the snow. So ignore the snow. We'll put the snow on top. So let's just put a dark bluish color. Now, I don't really pay attention to the exact color, but that's pretty good. So let's get the shapes of these mountains. Now make sure nothing goes in the middle, so it can come here somewhere. Now I don't really care about the shape exactly, but let's just do something like this. And then we can change the shape. Like you can see, this is a bit too spiky. That's okay. Yeah, we'll deal with it. It doesn't have to look like the reference, so let's just... But one thing you do want to do is make sure it faces the sun, which is coming from the left, so you can have some nice simple shapes up here. Now this is probably a bit too high, so I do the opposite. If I want to get rid of something, and then I swipe down and then cut. So I'll get that out of the way, and then I can put it back in. But I'm not too worried about this shape, to be honest. Maybe it doesn't come down far enough. Most of this is going to get covered anyway, so let's just get something in. Okay, that'll do. Then let's put the snow, the shadow snow. Now, this is always a hard color to get. So don't worry about it too much. It's just some sort of blue, but I'll change it if it's wrong. But basically what we want is just shadow color. It's not too bad. It's probably a bit too blue, but doesn't really matter. Okay, that will do. And then we need something like that. That's a bit. So I'm simplifying this reference. It's not that complicated anyway, but all we want is the lights and darks from this reference. I don't really care about much else. So once I got a bit of that in, let's put some of the whites. Now you don't want to go super white. It's best to go yellowish. It's kind of up to you, but as long as it's consistent. Let's get some highlights in so you can just see where the sun's coming from. And then it'll start to make more sense. Where we want to mess around with stuff. Okay, that's pretty good. Then I'll swap back to the shadow snow and get some of it on here. And we can see if it's working or not. It's starting to work, I think. So let's get some more of this snow in. So it goes like this and all the way up there. Oops. There's a problem with this tool. Sometimes if you don't commit it properly, you have to do it again, which is very annoying. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. We need some sunspots down here. Not sure about that actually. That looks a bit weird. I'll leave it for now. That looks a bit strange. Okay, so I've got some the basics in. I don't care about this hut. We'll do this hut later. Let's get some of these clouds in. Now, why I picked this is I like the pink clouds. So let's choose some sort of pink. Don't really care what. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's pretty good. It takes quite a long time to learn how to pick colors. I'm just used to it now, and you just get used to picking the right closest colors. There's not, even though it sounds like there's loads of colors, there's not really. You know, you got red, blue, green, yellow, orange, and that's about it really. So it's not. It might seem like there's millions of colors, but there isn't. That's a lot of crap. So I mean, one easy way to pick colors is kind of zoom out a lot, and then it's just easier to see from a distance if you manage to get it or not. It doesn't have to be that accurate anyway, but colors a bit of a pain. It takes a long time to get used to it, but it's quite stressful when you're beginning. Oops. Okay, blah blah blah. I don't really follow the reference, so I'm just looking at roughly. Okay, that's pretty cool. I don't think it's... Actually, I probably should have made this purple for the underside. So I'll change it to purple, actually. purpley blue. If I can get it, something like that. Because I need the shadow side of it first. And now I can put the highlights over the top, which is coming from the top left. And then, I mean, they're very highlighted anyway. There isn't much shadow to these. But it's good to have at least two colors in something. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. They're not actually the focus anyway. The focus is going to be this. But it's nice to have that. So to add detail is quite simple to the shadow side of the mountains, because all you got to do is grab a small hard brush and then start putting some detail in, and this will just be the vertical parts of where the snow doesn't land on certain parts. You definitely don't want to copy the reference when you do things like this, because it'd be very difficult to copy anyway, because there's small details, but you're trying to just make nice shapes, and you can do it from quite a distance as well. You don't need to be zoomed in. It's good not to be zoomed in. I think this blue's a bit dark actually. Yeah, it doesn't matter too much. Okay. This can take quite a while if you want to make it realistic, but I don't want to make it realistic, so I've got to make sure I'm kind of done in an hour anyway. Although I don't think this is going to take an hour. I'm pretty sure this is not going to take an hour. So we can have another mountain peak here, and I can put some snow on it again. I don't like this part of the snow actually. It's not a nice shape. So let me shape it up. But let's go up here too. One thing you don't want to do is have things where it just abruptly ends. That never looks good. Now in the reference, I don't like that one sticking out much. No, it's pretty good. I think what the reference does have though is this nice blue shape where I've broken it up. So I'll get rid of that. Oops. Okay, that's a nicer shape. Get back to making some detail. You just want to make a bit more realistic shapes. But like I said, I'm not going to overdo it. Just want enough to suggest. Like one way to see if you're doing well is to zoom out really far. And does it make sense? From like really, this is why it's nice on the iPad, because you can do that very quickly. And see if it's working from a distance. Oops. These bigger ones are kind of like when you have rocks there or something. Don't like that tree. I'm not going to bother with that tree. I don't think this pink is pink enough. Yeah, it's better. Now these clouds need some detail too. Oops. And then tune them together. One thing that doesn't look right is when you have big shapes that don't have little bits coming off them. So if you put these little bits coming off them, it kind of just makes more sense. For this style anyway. I mean, this is not meant to be realistic in the slightest. But you can see in the reference it has a little bits coming off as well. You can add as much detail as you want in the snow, but basically all you have to do is erase things. One thing we need to do is on the shadows side of the snow and the highlight actually, is we need to infer detail. If you look at the reference, there's tiny bits of detail. So if I just pick this and basically just make noise, it'll just look more realistic because you don't really have big flat shapes. So all you gotta do is add some noise already. And don't overdo it. It just makes it a bit more realistic. And the same in the highlight side. So it's actually this color, but underneath. So if you take this color, just make it very, very light. And I've actually got the wrong color there, but it doesn't matter. Okay, that'll do. Again, just add in some noise to infer that obviously the landscape is very detailed in reality. But for this style I'm trying to keep it simple, so I don't go too nuts with that. But I still need to delete a little bit more here and there. I try and break up these lines. When you have these harsh lines, it doesn't look too good because harsh lines don't really exist in landscapes. So like this line, I'm going to break it up a bit because they don't really exist. Okay, that looks pretty good. Tidy up some of the edges. So you can do the opposite. You can just put little details here and there where the sun might hit, like a little rock or something. Okay, that's looking cool. Yeah, this is going a bit too quick actually. Let's get this little hut thing in. We need this hut thing to give it scale. So right now, I mean, I know you can tell the mountains are big, but we want them to look really big. So if you put a hut in, now if I made the hut really big, it'll look kind of weird. But because the hut's really small, it'll make the mountains look even bigger. Right, make sure you get the perspective right if you're doing buildings. Basically, I just kind of get a rough idea, and then I use the eraser to get it more accurate. Again, I don't care if it's that accurate, but it's gotta be kind of right. So, and this is gonna be super saturated because the sun's hitting it. Maybe not that saturated. Okay, something like that. And then we have the shadow side of the snow. Just use normal brush here. And then we need to separate the snow off the roof a little bit, otherwise we're not going to see it. So I'll go slightly lighter. There we go. So that's not too bad. But then shape it up. Using the eraser is the easiest way. Make it look like there's snow in front. Could do with some detail on the roof maybe. Imply there's some sort of chimney. Would be good. But from a massive distance you can't really see anything. So one thing good to do with this kind of thing is just put some like little marks to pretend there's like fence or something. It doesn't really matter where it is, just a bit of noise to make it look like there's something. We want like a shadow under here. And then maybe some little bits of detail. Maybe a little window. That'll do. You don't need to go nuts because it's very, very small. So now the most important part about this little hut is the shadow. Now I'll give it, it looks fine without it, but it'll add a lot to it. So you'll see. So I got the snow here, which I can just use an eraser to take some of it away. And now it'll look like it's embedded properly in the snow, which is looks quite cool. Put a bit more detail here and there. Usually you get more detail where it goes from the snow to nothing or whatever's underneath it. So you can leave these kind of clean. In the reference picture, which I've shown you, is really small. So, but I can see there's like people's feet and stuff like that have been walking here. But I think it's probably pointless to add that kind of stuff. But you do want a bit of detail here to show us like there's rocks or something. Doesn't really matter. This is actually going way too quick. So I didn't think it'd go that quick, to be honest. The clouds are a bit crap. Maybe I'll work on those. Alright, the problem with the clouds is I need a color between this and this. So one way to do that, if we can't work out the color, which is quite difficult sometimes, just take the actual color of whatever is next to it, do that, and then you can just change the opacity down, and then it'll be the correct color. So if you didn't know what you wanted, it's a nice trick to blend them in. Now I know which color I wanted it because this is transparent, a little bit transparent, so the color is going to be this behind it. So I can do it again. I just take that color, but because I've changed the opacity of the layer down, it's going to look like, obviously it'd be disappeared completely, but I don't want that. I only want a little bit, so it blends in to the background a little bit better. I need to get rid of this light color. It's not nice. And then you can pick the actual color once you've done that. Merge them together, and now you know what color it is because this is there, so you can just use it now. I need to merge it in a bit better. I don't like clouds that often, to be honest. They're always a bit of a pain for me. Can't be good at everything. One thing we can try with these, if we don't want the clouds to be so stiff, is we can Gaussian blur them a bit. So we take Gaussian blur. Now we don't want to go a lot, like a tiny bit. It'll look like a bit out of focus or something, which is good because you don't want to look at these clouds, really. Now I notice in the reference they're getting lighter up here because obviously the sun's coming from this way. So if I alpha lock this, take that one, go a bit lighter, and I can lighten all of this. So it looks like the sun's coming from there. Okay, that's good. One thing I notice, there's a little subtle, there's some yellow clouds as well. I don't know if they'll look good. I wasn't going to bother with those, but let's see if they work. Alright, again, trying to pick the right color. Tell you the one problem with yellow is a bit of a pain, is because it's right next to green. And if you go slightly too far to the right, you end up with green. Or you go, so the yellow is like a really small part to get right. Well, obviously green is really big, blue is really big, but yellow is actually really small. I think it's not quite that yellow. Okay, let's have a look. See what it looks like. That's way too yellow. So like I said, quite often I get the wrong color. But if we go to hue, saturation, and brightness, it's a lot lighter than that. It's not quite as... It's pale. Yeah, something like that. That's better. But it also blends in with this. So I'll do that trick again. I don't really... It blends in with this pinky bit. But not quite. So I take that. I create a new layer. And then I put clipping mask on. So clipping mask means that I can't go out of this yellow now. So something I use pretty much all the time. And then we can kind of blend it in with the top bit. What I'm trying to do is have a transition between the yellow and the clouds, but I don't want that much of a transition, so I just bring it down a bit. And then I'll blend in better. So now I try not to leave layers that are opacity down because it can get quite confusing. Because if I try and paint on it now, everything I paint on it is going to be like not the right color exactly. So I blend them back in, I merge them back in. So I try and make sure all my layers are on 100% max. Okay, there's one little subtle thing on the reference is there's like an orangey haze here with the sun sitting there. I don't know if that's going to add anything. Well, let's have a go, see what it looks like. I think the haze is kind of like this color. And it's kind of on the tips of the white snow. Something like that. I need clipping mask on again. So I only want it to hit, oops, yep, I only wanted to hit that, but it is actually very soft, so I'll use Gaussian blur again in a second and see if this works. Right. It's kind of okay like that anyway, but let's Gaussian blur it. Okay, there we go, so I get a nice transition, basically for free. I think it hits up here as well. The only problem with Gaussian blur, once you've done it once, you can't add more and do it again. So I just undo it for now. And then I can do it again. Okay, that looks pretty good. Said I wasn't going to bother with that little tree there, but no, I don't think I will. So the sun's coming from here, hitting it very bright. And I notice in the reference, these two are really, really bright. So this looks quite nice. So create a new layer. Let's get pretty much white. And let's get these super bright. And try not to have too much detail. Yeah, that looks good. One thing I don't like, I need some shadow here. So I'll add some more. Usually when I'm coming to an end of the painting, I'll just create one layer, then I'll just do kind of whatever I need to. Just with just a little brush, which is technical pin. So I'll just add little bits here and there. And make sure it's working. Like so. Tidy up little missing details like this. But I leave it fairly messy, so I'm not overly bothered if it's messy. I only really care from what it looks like from a reasonable distance. So if I look at it tiny, is it working? Yep. Another good thing is to flip it as well. And then see if the angles are right. So I flipped it. I don't like this angle actually, no. This looks okay. This looks like it's too far over that way. So let me change the angle of this a little bit. So it stands up more. These peaks always kind of stand up vertically. Well, it's a bit lopsided, which is fine. I mean, in real life they are lopsided, but I think we expect them kind of not to be lopsided, even if they are. Okay, that looks better. It's a bit lopsided before. Now I flip it back and it makes quite a bit more sense. Yeah, there isn't much more to do on this. I mean, the snow ones are quite simple actually when you build the layers up bit by bit, but it's getting the big shapes right, which is the tricky part. But once you get the big shapes right, and the blue, these blues in the shadow side of the snow are really quite tricky. But if you manage to get those right, then it is really just about adding these little details of where basically the snow is hitting here, and these dark bits are because the rocks are kind of vertical and the snow can't land on them, so they hit it and then they fall off. And you don't get those very often. You can see in the reference photo, you don't get them very often because it has to be very steep for the snow not to land on it. And these mountains are actually not that steep, so only in tiny bits. I like to go hiking a lot, so I kind of pay attention when I'm walking around these kinds of places. Although I'm in the UK, we don't get this kind of snow really much, but you can tell where it would land if you pay attention to it. Okay, I don't like that much. Don't like the shape at all, actually. I'm going to join it together. One thing you got to be careful of when doing these is not to have too many peaks. If you have too many peaks, it'll just look too busy. So if it looks too busy, then join them together. But you can see now it's so easy to add snow in the shadow side once you've got the right blue. So I can add snow anywhere now. All I gotta do is so highlight, sorry, the shadow, it looks like there's something there. I have a range of blues, by the way, though, so it might look like there's one, but these are a little bit different. So that one's different again. So you want to mix it up a little bit. So you can see it's actually a very different blue there. It looks the same from a distance, but it's not. So I have a mix of blues. This is almost going towards the purple as well, so it's good to have a mix. I think you can do that, and then you'd merge in a bit. You wouldn't just have the scribbles, but one nice thing to do with these little huts as well, one thing it just makes it look a bit more 3D, is have a telephone pole. Oops, that's a bit skinny. Mixing it a bit chunky. And then you can have a little detail like that. But the most important part is to do the snow, which I can use an eraser or do the actual or paint it. But I'll use the eraser. Just make sure the eraser is not too big. And then I can do that. It doesn't have to be straight, because obviously the floor isn't actually that flat. And then we could do a tiny one there, and it just adds a bit more detail. But that's probably it. I wouldn't do a great deal more, to be honest. I mean, maybe tidying things up. Like if you zoom in, it's a bit messy there, but it doesn't really matter. It's not going to change the painting. So if you look at it compared to the reference, I think the sky might be a bit too light. Yeah, maybe. But like I said, I'm not trying to copy the reference. I'm just using it as something to give me an idea of what I want to do. It looks fine to me. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do much more. One thing I like to do is go back to all my other paintings and see how it compares to all the other ones. So this was a different snow painting I did a couple of weeks ago or something. How does it compare to that one? And just does it fit quality-wise? And am I missing anything that I could do? One thing maybe I could do, which isn't in the reference, is add some fog or something like that. So usually I just take the sky color, what's next to the lowest part of the sky, and then make some kind of cloudy type shapes. I don't know if this is going to work. I really have no idea. And we take this one as well. And it's just like clouds will be coming over the fronts of the mountains. So maybe some of this pink. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work. And then I Gaussian blur it, because these kind of need to be soft. And then if it's a bit too powerful, you can knock it back. And it just gives it some sort of wispiness. I think this is working, but I want some of the white to come through as well. So let's try that. When you use Gaussian blur, it really shrinks it a lot, so make sure you kind of just have too much. Yeah, looks good. Looks like the wind is blowing the snow up, which always looks pretty cool. And it hides the harsh lines as well. So to have some of that going on is always good. I'm going to undo that because I want more of it though. So let's have some down here as well. This kind of just adds a lot more atmosphere. I mean, you could leave them could leave them hard as well if you wanted to. So let's Gaussian blur it. There we go. Now we have some wind, basically. Yeah, I don't think I would do much else. It's pretty good. I mean, if you wanted this realistic, it's basically about doing a much better job at this bit. So you can see like how scribbly it is. I mean, that's fine from you know, when you zoom out, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, I could tidy these up, but I don't really like spending ages on this stuff. But you could use the tool there to tidy these up and make more definite shapes, which is always good to have the definite shapes, to be honest, rather than scribbly nonsense. Well, this is a bit too much of a pattern here as well. Similar kind of shapes. So let's break that up. It's not the nicest. And too much of a big blob. Okay, that's better. Similar to these as well. You'll find that these things are quite sharp. If you look on the reference photo, I mean, I know it's kind of small for you, but these things are usually quite sharp. This is why I like using this tool, this select tool all the time, because you get, you're going to paint fast, mind. If you do this, it's going to be wobbly. So obviously you can go like that too, and it'll be, but the problem with that is you're going to make some weird shapes. But one thing you can do is, if to be fast, is you just do this, and you'll get some cool shapes with very little effort. Okay, looking pretty good. I don't actually like this shape either. It's this technique is all about the shapes. If I get the shapes wrong, it doesn't really look very nice. So sometimes I'll go back and change the shape. And what I mean by a good shape is that you have to have some smooth lines, some straight lines, some jaggedy lines. You just have to have a nice mix of all of them. Don't like this shape either. It's all about the shapes. Like, why I'm saying I don't like it is because look at this little weird hump thing. It's like, why would you have like a hump thing? We're dealing with mountains here, so let's fix that. Oops. And try not to have too many peaks. Nope, don't like that either. Try again. Okay, that's not bad. Don't like this shape either much. So let's try and fix that. Usually when I'm trying to fix my shapes, I'm usually just simplifying them. I'm missing quite a lot of shadow here. Oops. So let's get some of that in here. On the wrong layer. Happens all the time. Okay, so we have some there. Basically what we're going to do if we add stuff here is just going to create like mini peaks. Got a clip and mask on. It's kind of why I try not to have too many layers. You don't know where you are. Again. So when I get to the end-ish or near the end, I'll start to not worry too much about my layers, and I'll kind of lose the plot a little bit. And I just stick them all up the top, so it's like this is just random layer now, but it'll do the job. Okay, that just breaks that bit up a bit. You can see it's quite a bit different to the reference, but that doesn't matter. Don't really care. Now we just have 3 peaks, kind of like a ridge and a ridge and a ridge. So you could probably go the other side and add some snow up the top of the ridge a little bit. And it'll just make it look like a really complicated day now. Oops. Really complicated day, and I didn't really do anything. So you have you don't actually have to do a lot to imply that it's got a lot of detail. So like if we zoom out, it looks like that's really complicated. But actually all I did was add some blue and a bit of white. So it's about getting the kind of the colors right and the detail. Your mind will fill the detail in. You don't actually have to draw all the detail. Okay, just for a laugh, I will do this tree. Although one thing you want to be careful of is where the focus is. Now, I didn't actually care when I started this where the focus is going to be, but usually you just get it at some point. And I would say the focus is probably here. You can have 2 focuses though, so it's obviously there and there, but this is, you want to probably do this. And so you get that because of these shadows. And this blocks you going that way, so that's good. You need blockers. So you'll come in here, you look at this, you go there. Now I should probably put a highlight there so you can get past there. Because your eye will hit it and won't like it so much. So we can try making some sort of fake path that you can get through. And then the eye should flow better. At this point I'm not looking at the reference at all, so I'm going to, actually give me a second. I'm going to turn it off because it doesn't matter anymore. Now it is just me messing around with this. Because I'm going off reference now, I'm kind of doing whatever. So, but without that, you can't get through there, so you see that, it makes a barrier, so you kind of can't get through. But now you can, so now the composition works better, because we can go there. And how you follow is because of the contrast, and we like to follow contrast. You could do the same here as well. This is kind of blocking, so we could, do the similar down here and put another way to climb up, if that makes any sense. Might work, maybe not. Nah, don't like it. Sometimes you can make it too obvious. Okay, let's try and put a couple of trees just for fun. I don't want, there's not a lot of color in this painting other than the pinks and stuff, so let's kind of keep the color palette simple. So yeah, the point about the trees is though, because you come in here, and this is where you want them to go, don't put something there, because it'll drag you away, and we don't want that. So when you have lots of detail like this little house, you can put the detail there, or anywhere, maybe along here, but you don't want to put it over there, because it's going to drag you away. So if I'm going to do this tree, it's probably going to be like here or here or whatever. So it's got to be close. Now I don't know if this tree is going to work, so let's just try. And usually it's a good idea not to do one tree, but a few. And I won't do it like properly. Okay, there we go. And one nice little trick to make it blend in better is you can imagine, which is quite tricky to be honest, but you can imagine that there's a hill there and the snow would blast over it. So you can tell there's a hill there because of the shadow. So you know the hill is doing this. But we can change the angle and then we can chop them off. And without actually doing anything, you know there's a hill there now. And just a nice little trick is just when you draw things, try not, or paint things, try not to put everything so obvious and cut things off. So my point being, right, is you can do a tree here. Just a crappy tree, whatever, doesn't matter. But it doesn't look as good. Well, you probably need a bit of a shadow or something. But it doesn't look quite as good because it's just one big, you can see everything. So one nice trick is just to chop it in half, and it'll apply a lot of detail. Like there's a hill, and you don't have to even paint the hill, which is quite nice. So, because if you did have to paint the hill, it's a bit of a pain. I mean, you'd have to, well, let's try it. You'd have to have a different highlight, which is fine, but you can do that too. But my point is you don't have to. Now, one point to make out, which I did explain a while ago, is you don't want snow to be totally white. Now this is totally white, so you can see how not white the snow actually is. So if I want to brighten that one, that's not too bad. It's probably still a bit too light. So let's darken it. And because these are really light, it's kind of hard to get the right color there, but you can add detail if you want. I mean, if you're gonna make this realistic, then you will have to do more and more of this, because there is, if you look at the references, very, very subtle detail all over it. But I kind of stop early because I don't like too much detail. Now again, I'm back to looking at my shapes and what shapes do I like or dislike and blah blah blah. Is I don't like this shape now, which is fine, but it can be better. I don't know what shape I want. I kind of just know what shape I don't want. And I think I want it a bit smoother. Or maybe a point. Okay, that's not too bad. I basically don't like, I mean, it's sounding kind of weird, but I don't really like concave shapes much. These kind of shapes just look a bit weird. But that's up to you, kind of what shape you want. Okay, I think that's probably about it. I wouldn't do too much more. One thing we want to do is, I think these clouds are still a bit too dark. Maybe I don't like them pink at all. Yeah, I guess pink's working. But maybe not quite as pink. Okay, that's better. Yeah, they were too dark. Yeah, that's better. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. It's no point, you're gonna know when to stop. I think this yellow has somehow got a bit too Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'll leave it there. Wouldn't mind the shiny window, but I'm faffing now. Let's just leave it. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll maybe I'll make a video of this and post it somewhere, but